Welcome back to Screen Rant, your home for the best movie theories on YouTube. Let me just reiterate that for a moment. Movie theories, not movie-confirmed facts, movie theories. Because it's come to our attention that some of our theories get a bit of scrutiny for the stretches that we're willing to examine and the possibilities that we're willing to entertain. So having said that, without further ado, this is why Thanos was an excellent father.
Roll back for a drop of blood.
Okay, sure, the guy wasn't perfect. He had his issues. It's easy to hate on Big Perp and label him one of the most awful villains of all time and someone who nearly destroyed the universe. He's justifiably hateable for some pretty valid reasons, but it's about time that we look at some of Thanos' more redeeming qualities. Deep down, he just wanted what's best for everyone, and believed he was being merciful by eliminating half of all life in the galaxy. When you look at it from his point of view, his horrible actions seem almost justified. He was trying to save the world, not destroy it. It's easy to see his actions and immediately jump to conclusions about how terrible he is, but he actually always had the greater good in mind. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to bear the burden of being the universe's greatest villain, and to understand that that's how people will view you, even when you don't see yourself as a villain. It could be argued that it wasn't his place to make such a drastic decision, but if not him, then who? It's not like the galaxy's population was getting any smaller, or like there was suddenly going to be more resources and enough for everybody to live comfortably. There was a clear-cut problem, and Thanos took it upon himself to fix it. That's actually pretty fatherly of him. I mean, who's the best problem solver you know? 9 times out of 10, it's your dad. Deep down behind all those layers of purple muscles, Thanos isn't such a bad guy, and he's actually a great parent. In order to properly discuss if Thanos is a good dad or not, I think it's important we define what a good dad is. Some valuable characteristics include strong paternal instincts, the ability to be a good provider, the ability to lead by example, and also patience. Well, he clearly has paternal instincts, evidenced by his protective nature. He's also a great provider, and has taken on the responsibility of being the universe's provider. When he realizes there isn't enough to go around for absolutely everyone, he took it upon himself to change the entire dynamic. He's so hell-bent on being a provider that he's willing to go to any length to make sure that everyone is well fed and taken care of. He's a superb leader. Just look at how many loyal followers he has who are willing to do his bidding and follow his every word. He's got his own army, for crying out loud. You've got to be a real solid leader to lead your own army, and he's also definitely patient. I mean, he was collecting those Infinity Stones for a decade's worth of movies before finally making his official first strike in Infinity War. He knew how to wait it out and pounce at the opportune time. He wasn't in a rush. After all, in his own words, he's inevitable. So why feel the pressure to hurry things up? In a way, Thanos is like a father to all of us. He took on the responsibility of being a father to the universe. He made it his duty to make sure that everyone was well taken care of, and felt the obligation to do something about a crisis he saw happening. He just wanted everyone to thrive. He hated seeing hungry people or anyone suffering, so his goal was simply to restore balance. From his perspective, his actions were a sign of mercy, and he was so unbiased about it that he actually sacrificed one of his own actual children for the greater good. Like, it doesn't get any more fair than that. That's the kind of attitude you want in, say, a youth soccer coach. You don't want the guy who's going to favor his own kid and give them all the spotlight. No, you want the coach who's going to give everyone a fair shot and be unbiased and give their team the best chance of winning games. At the end of the day, what really is a good coach if not for a fancy word for a sports dad? Even his relationship with Gamora, although volatile and turbulent at times, showed a lot of positive traits. He brings her food when he thinks she's hungry. He chooses to sit and talk to her at eye level because he doesn't want to appear intimidating to her. And he also sits on the stairs and not in his big awesome chair because he respects her feelings for it. Also, if you pay attention, he never once yells at her. She loses her cool at him all the time, but he never retaliates or lashes back. He never raises his voice or loses his temper, despite all their disagreements. They disagreed on one major issue when it came to, eliminating half of all life, but other than that one fundamental issue, Thanos continuously treated her with nothing but love and respect. I mean, he tossed her off that cliff. Even that scene had some pretty fatherly moments, though. Clearly, Thanos loved his daughter, otherwise her sacrifice in exchange for the Soul Stone wouldn't even have worked. It had to be someone he loved, so that right there just goes to show how much he truly did care about his daughter. With tears in his eyes, he's obligated to do the deed in order to serve the greater good of the universe. Perhaps the most telling part of Thanos and Gamora's visit to Vormir, though, is right at the beginning, when they approach Red Skull in the cloak. Clearly, you want to be careful when approaching a shadowy, lurking, hovering skeleton man on a foreign planet. That's just common knowledge. But Thanos is so protective of his daughter that he instinctively puts his hand out, telling her to stay behind him. That's some true fatherly love right there. Plus, it's worth mentioning that Gamora and Nebula aren't even his paternal kids. He adopts them because he's a caring person. Now, adopted children are equally as loved as paternal ones, but his willingness to take in these two orphan girls and care for them as his own says something about his character and his paternal abilities. We don't need to get into, the reasons why they were orphaned. All we need to discuss for the sake of this particular theory is the fact that he took them in and cared for them. Plus, in the comics, Thanos saves Gamora for a completely different reason. Her people weren't eliminated by him, but rather by Adam Warlock. Thanos sets out to prevent this timeline of events in which Adam Warlock becomes all-powerful by rescuing Gamora in an attempt to create a new track in the timeline. He could have easily abandoned Gamora as soon as the plan was executed, but instead chose to raise her as his own, trained her to fight, and even taught her about Christmas. Isn't that nice? In a way, Thanos is kind of like a parent to all of the Avengers, only in more of a rebellious teenager butting heads with their strict dad kind of way. Daddy issues are a running theme throughout the superhero squad, specifically with Iron Man, Black Widow, Star-Lord, and Thor. They've all got some serious baggage and would benefit greatly from a therapist instead of more fight scenes and laser blasters. To a degree, Thanos plays the role of father that those heroes never truly got to experience. They never got to run up the stairs and slam the door, and the entire Infinity War saga and climactic conclusion in Endgame is just a souped-up version of that very dynamic. Just look at the scene where Thanos gently places his hand on top of Tony Stark's head during the battle on Titan, right before he shows an odd inkling of respect and tells Tony that he hopes people remember him. Thanos recognizes that they both share the burden of intelligence and are, quote, cursed with knowledge. That short moment at the end of a gruesome battle is more compassion and recognition than Tony's ever gotten from Howard Stark. Plus, need I remind you that the beloved Tony Stark was the same guy who wanted to encase the world in a suit of armor to protect it. He was totally willing to sacrifice freedom in exchange for security. Thanos isn't much different. He was so protective of the universe that he was willing to sacrifice half of all life within it to preserve it. They're both of pure intention, only with tendencies to abuse their authority. They're both pretty dad-like when it comes to caring about others and needing to protect and provide. They're obsessive about improving the suffering that they see around them, only Tony has a tad bit more humility. Thanos has a tendency to be, ruthless. It makes sense that Thanos would turn out this way when you factor in his terrible upbringing. He's simply a product of his environment, and it's actually impressive how compassionate and caring he turned out, all things considered. His parents hated him, and even tried to eliminate him at birth. They abused him, as did everyone else he grew up with. He was treated like a freak and an outcast. His own father was barely present in his life, and when he was, it was constant disdain and disappointment. Before long, Thanos was even exiled from his homeland. His actions to save the universe were simply him trying his best to get out of that negative cycle that he was raised within. He was born with all this power and intelligence, but no one to guide it in any particular direction. So he simply became a product of his environment. The sheer fact that he fell in love with Lady Death in the comics should be a giveaway that there's a big heart hidden behind all that sick armor. Thanos might seem scary, but he's actually just a hopeless romantic, you guys. And he's also a pretty rad dad, if you ask me. Well, what do you think? Got any reasons why Thanos might not be such a great dad? I couldn't think of any, but maybe you can. Leave your comments in the section down below. And be sure to tune in next week as we discuss why Darth Vader was actually an awesome father. Before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to Screen Rant to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!